YouTube.
Gabe is the analyst train on YouTube.
Hit it. Dun, 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 ba, 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 da, dun. Smooth 98.1, love music, love life. Welcome if you just joined us, you are just in time. It's time for Freshly Pressed 981, where we bring you detailed analysis of stories making headlines in the dailies. So, yes, if you're out there and you're new to the show, or you want to be a part of our conversation, well, you know what to do. If you don't know what to do, we're going to tell you what to do right after we introduce our guest to you.
Yeah, and we're joined by Ugo Dre. Good morning, Ugo.
Morning, everyone. Morning, Lagos. How you guys doing?
We're doing well. So we're going to have Ugo Dre analyze the stories this morning. To join the conversation, please send a message to 0809 444 0981. 0809 444 0981. That's the WhatsApp number to send a message to.
Don't forget we're streaming as well. It's youtube.com/smooth981. So leave a comment on our YouTube page. Let's to be a part of our conversation in general.
All right, let's get into the stories. Buhari vows to ease importation for manufacturers through Forex supply. President Major General Muhammad Buhari has assured the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria that his regime will do everything in its power to improve access to foreign exchange for importation of raw materials and machines that are not available locally. He also added that the federal government would also ensure that relevant structured platforms are established for monitoring and evaluation of the performance of the ease of doing business and improved government patronage of made in Nigeria products. What do you make of this, Obo?
Well, encouraging comment there. From the president. Even though we doubt that there's that much that he can do. Nigeria relies a lot on forex to pay for imported raw materials, and if you're going to have a thriving manufacturing sector, then you got to have um, you know local inputs that you require to manufacture, come into the country without any disruption. And what we've had in the last year has been manufacturing companies struggling to get, to import raw materials. And of course, there's been some upsides to that because some of them had to, look inwards and start to look for local inputs. But what that really means as well is that it drives up inflation, like we discussed here yesterday, because a lot of the local raw materials you have are not in large quantity, and then even when they are actually very expensive. In terms of being able to provide forex for manufacturers, it's going to be tough for him. Nigeria, I think this year alone, the first 3 quarters of this year, we spent 21 trillion on imports. If you compare that to the whole of 2020, it was 19 or so trillion. So we're likely going to hit 24 or 25 trillion, on imports this year alone. And that, of course, is because of the devaluation of the naira, which happened this year compared to last year. So, and even at that, you still had a lot of manufacturing companies complaining of, not being able to access dollars.
Why? Because of the ease of doing business? So what
No, no.
exactly was
So
the
you
problem?
can't access dollars because mostly because of the CBN policies.
Yeah,
So the
there's a
CBN
limit.
policy basically, fixes the price at which the dollar is sold at the official market, where exporters, even, usually come in and sell dollars to importers. And so what then happens is a lot of the exporters and even the investors don't even bother bringing dollars through that channel. So they rather just take the dollar to the parallel market, to the parallel market channel. And so what it then means is for a lot of these manufacturers, if you can't access dollars in through the official channel, then you have to go to the parallel market channel. And what that means is that your prices are going to be very
Goes up.
expensive. And when your prices are very expensive, then you can't really do enough volumes as well because Nigerians then start to cut down on a lot of their purchases, and that also affects their business. So it's sort of like a spiral effect. Now, they can also compete as well because what then happens is people who have a way of importing and exporting keep their own dollars and then use their own dollars to fund their local manufacturing inputs, and then they can then compete better with price. So it's a huge problem. It's a problem that those of us who follow the economy noticed, observed last year and most of this year as well. And if the president is really serious about changing it, then he has to, have a very serious conversation with the CBN governor, right, and the CBN about their forex policies. A lot of us thought that this year would see, a more relaxed forex policy. Rather, they have tried as much as
They did
possible.
clamp down on a number of BDCs
Yeah, those
and
ones are even small, but the real issue really is being able to provide forex to manufacturers at the sector at the market that they need it the most. People have talked about bringing in, collapsing the various windows that we have for buying forex. There's even a window for importers, in case you don't know, where they go
okay.
and buy forex. Yes, but there's really limited forex being sold there, so it's probably not enough for them. So, but all this is happening because you only have one major supplier of forex in the market, and that's the CBN.
Is it possible to create like a list for all marketers and say, okay, so for manufacturers rather, and say, okay, so if there are maybe say 1,000, for example, I'm just saying for the sake of argument, that okay, so these are the people that we're going to give to specifically. Will that help in the ease of doing this business?
Interestingly, the CBN set up I've forgotten the name now, but they set up they recently launched, a program where importers who actually wanted forex can actually go in. So it's basically trying to churn out a lot of the fake importers or people who usually just go in and ask for
Clean.
excess dollars and all that. Yeah, so
And they're not
they
necessarily
basically
importing.
streamlined that, and I think they've back. I can't remember if I remember the name during the show. I'll put it out there. But it's something that they've done already, and that is meant to address a lot of all these things. So there you can have genuine importers go in and register, and then you can get access to forex easily, via the CBN portal and their partner banks, and that should make things. But it hasn't really gone mainstream yet. I'm not sure it's fully operational yet, but I know it was something they launched sometime this year. So perhaps that could address. But like I said, if the president really wants to do something about this, to help manufacturers, is really to sort out the forex problem. That's really what he needs to do. And let's also remember that there's still a ban on 41 items that has been there
Yeah.
since 2015 and 16. And some of these items include raw materials that manufacturing firms rely on for their local manufacturing.
So you will probably start from there, or you should probably start from there.
If the ban is
Perhaps
lifted, it might be better.
it should be, but let's also understand why the ban is there. The ban is there too because the CBN's impression is that a lot of all these raw materials,
Produced
here.
can be done here. They exist here. But look, the ban has been on for 4 or 5 years. So by now, that local capacity that we expect should have been built already. So, I mean,
So
but
speaking
is it
of the
here?
progress, for example, how do we know the progress of how this ban has, done so far in our economy? From this story, the president is saying also that they're going to build some form of institution that's going to follow up with the progress of ease of doing business. So things like this, institutions that can
please.
actually follow through with
No more
policies
institutions.
and-
There's PEBEC, or what's it called, and that's the government agency that handles ease of doing business. And
Yeah.
ease of doing business, with due respect, cannot even be fixed by the president. That's just to show you how convoluted the entire thing is. It can't be fixed by the vice president has been on it for years, and I doubt that the president can even do anything different, right? What is really what the issue? It's a structural issue that we face in the country, and it's going to take a lot to fix all that. Like I said, it starts with forex policies. Once you get the forex policies right, then I think you can start to get a lot of raw materials, into the country. Put things in the context for you again. Nigeria needs, by our estimates, when I say by our estimates, nairametrics, that is, we need about $100+ billion in forex
In
annually.
manufacturing.
In forex annually in Nigeria, that's what we consume, and I think as a country we probably earn less than $50 billion.
Oh, wow.
So you can see that gap, and that gap it would usually be met by foreign investor inflows and inflows from exporters and all that. So, and that hasn't really met up right over the last 2 years. So that's why you see the exchange rate constantly,
Going up.
depreciating. Yeah. So in a way, yes, that's why the CBN is trying to block, demand for dollars. But without local capacity, it's just going to be difficult. So that's why people say you need a forex policy that encourages inflow of forex into the country, right? There would always, you can't always have a strong naira. It's not possible. But what you need is something stable. I think I mentioned that yesterday.
That comes in all the time. Thank you very much for that. If you just joined us, by the way, this is Freshly Pressed 981, and you can be a part of our conversation. We're also streaming live on YouTube. Let's move on to our next story. It's from the Guardian newspaper. It says NAFDAC to reduce drug importation to 30% by 2025. Now, to give a background to this, the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control, NAFDAC, says it's working on reducing the importation of drugs from its present 70% to 30% by 2025. Now, Ogudre, um, here's the thing. In Nigeria, I don't know how true it is, and I stand to be corrected, but I'm not sure how, you know, our labs and also our personnel can handle this. Do you see this happening? I mean, what's your assessment as far as this is concerned?
Well, probably a lot of talk. This is just your typical bureaucratic talk. The Director General, you know, Professor Mojisola Adeye, actually qualified the statement very well. She said, through increased local manufacturing of drugs. So I was going to say, okay, are you, you know, are you a witcher now, or was it again?
Just
I just
wave your wand
just
and
wave
say,
it
okay.
and make it happen, you know. But obviously, that's the only way that you can reduce importation of drugs, and it all speaks to what we said earlier as well in the fresh story. You cannot reduce importation if you don't have manufacturing capacity.
But are we at that level? You know, we're talking about personnel now. We're talking about, do we have the labs to create these drugs? Do we have the personnel to say, okay, okay, so some people create malaria drugs, other people create, so do we have the personnel to, dig deep and do these kind of things?
Well, I doubt it. I mean, without relying on a lot of facts, but I doubt it. I think we know that. Uh, Let me give you an example. If we can only tackle malaria drugs, I think malaria drugs we spend 66 or so billion naira a quarter, importing malaria drugs, and that's official stats, not unofficial. So you know, so that alone just and that's one of the top 15 imports we have in the country. Malaria drugs is one of them. So and if there's one manufacturing capacity that we should even have first, it should be malaria drugs.
True.
Right, exactly. So, and not a lot of them exist. What we do have, manufacturing capacity for maybe pain relievers and things like that. I think we've sort of done well in that area. But to have for a lot of the, drugs on the myriad of drugs that we import in this country that we need, it's just so much. And that's part of what I talked about having very good forex policies and good policies that is doing business, because the only way you can have this sort of manufacturing capacity, it's not what you said. It's not having people that have the smartness or the education or the technique or technology. It's really attracting drug manufacturing companies across the world.
To come and invest here.
Yes, exactly. Not to come and invest here per se, to come and set up here, right? So they need to set up hubs here that can cater for sub-Saharan Africa. So to most of these manufacturing companies, these drug manufacturing companies, still see Africa as just one very small part of the world. So rather than set up here, they probably set up at best in South Africa, right, or in Asia, and then they can service the African market. And mind you, setting up a drug manufacturing plant is not being at all, right? Because sometimes it can take as much as 5-10 years for you to create that breakthrough drug. Because it requires a lot of investments in research and development and things like that. And so, do you have that kind of money? So, I don't think that's one of the things that, as a country, we should be, thinking about in terms of having a local manufacturing presence. But now, get the guys who do it already,
And have them come down here, set up them.
So what you do have rather, companies, drug-related companies that distribute on behalf of these guys. The CBN has tried to fund some of these things to give some of these guys lifelines, but to be honest, that's just a minuscule amount compared to what they actually need to set up drug manufacturing plants in Nigeria. So to the NAFDAC lady, I think it's just wishes. It's beyond just saying, oh, we're just going to cut it down by 2025. How? What have you done?
I was going to say that.
What structures have you put in place?
I was going to say that maybe if malaria vaccines came here, then we'll reduce the importation of malaria drugs. But then again, we're still going to import the vaccines.
So, I mean, there's that.
Exactly, and that's one problem I have with government officials really, and when they just come out and just make this sort of bogus statements, like those statements that maybe some guy whose job it is to just write a speech, just put it in there, just so that you just have one headline speech. Yeah, because it takes a lot for how do you go from 70% to 30%? You know what that is? That's cutting it by more than half. Like, how are you going
So
to do
they're
that?
they're saying, I mean, basically, what one of the conversations stem from the fact that COVID has opened our eyes to a lot of things, right? So as opposed to just importing drugs, it would be better to produce the drugs here. So the first question that came to mind is, do we have the labs? Yes, we have some personnel, but we have enough capacity to do it. But then you've also mentioned that bringing the guys that do these things would make a lot of sense. But again, if you're out there and you agree with Ugudre, feel free to share with us your thoughts. Send them to 0809-444-0981.
We have a message from Xiaomi. I don't know this regime that is still campaigning and promising the third quarter of its second term. The government will, the government shall, etc. Now, wow.
And here a message from Joseph from Silver Estate. He says, "Your vibrant analyst, the government is never sincere in any policy. They're promising to ease dollar access for companies. The CBN official rate is 412, but my bank usually exploits each time I want to use the equipment and other online charges between 480 and 500. Transparency and sincerity is the key." Okay, so that's from Joseph. Thank you so much, Joseph.
Thank you. Let's move on to this story from the Auditor General's report. Audit finds Phony agency helped divert 15 billion naira into NEBZA's account in 2 years. NEBZA, that being Nigeria Export Processing Zone Authority. Google, they have this agency that has been created, Nigeria Special Economic Zone Company Limited, and the report is saying that first of all there is no basis for the need of the money that was transferred, and also this particular agency was not created based on approval from the president. What do you make of this story?
I don't know. This just looks like some sort of witch hunt to me, or maybe premium time just
Why do you say
trying to
witch
just
hunt?
bang together numbers. I don't know. Anyway, what you typically hear most times is divert out of. So this one is divert into NEBZA. So okay, diverting it into government accounts. Okay, so
But it
is
also
the money
states that
lost now?
the money is not lost, but it was
So
of
what's
no use.
yeah,
There's no report.
so
Yeah.
the issue here is that the only issue I see here is that there was an agency that was set up without the approval of the president, which is kind of strange, and it's interesting the way they name these agencies: ZESCO, Nigerian Special Economic Zones Company Limited, and which is a limited liability company that was set up. And what I see here is that this was looks like the target here is the former Minister of Trade, Okechukwu Enelama, because this happened during his time as minister. And they are saying that this agency was set up without the approval of the president. But from what I've seen here, it doesn't look like any money was missing because the money originally belonged to the Nigerian Exports Processing Zone Authority, NEPSA. So so when they say diverted into, well, we still found its way back into the original where it should be. So the only thing wrong here is the phone agency that was created according to Premium Times. And I don't know, even being an agency is kind of strange because from what I see here, it's a limited liability company, so it's not an agency. They probably just created maybe an SPV or something, a vehicle within NEPSA for whatever reason, and that wasn't clearly stated in here. So I mean, I think things like this should be properly investigated,
Investigated
rather
before.
than just report them without providing enough detail. It's obvious ZESCO here, again, Nigerian Special Economic Zones Company Limited. I mean, I don't know how that's an agency.
But then again, if the company is not approved by the president, doesn't that mean that it's some type of a red flag?
Yeah, of course. That's
Yeah. That's I mentioned that already. I said that but you see, it depends, right? So if it's an agency that is maybe set up by law and things like that, then you need the president, right? But how do you set up a company also under a ministry or owned by a ministry or an agency of government, without having some kind of government backing. And you couldn't have set up that agency for because for a NEPS for a government agency like NEPSA, for example, they would have a board, and the board would have its own chairman and all that, and these are the people that would approve setting up of anyway, like I said, there wasn't enough detail in here, so rather than start to make speculations, what is key is that who approved setting up ZESCO, and why was it set up in the
Yeah,
first
why
place.
was this set
But
up?
the story here didn't
How are they
so,
making their money?
except you want me to be pontification, to be spreading rumors.
All right, thank you very much for that. Real quick, though, let's jump into our next story. It's from the Punch newspaper. It talks about airlines and others raking in 146 billion in 9 months as the aviation industry rebounds. Okay, so we know what happened in 2020. There was a pandemic. A lot happened as far as the economy is concerned with the revenue. But they're talking about the fact that, relaxed travel restrictions occasioned by COVID-19 pandemic and increased economic activities during the year drove recovery in the aviation sector in the first 9 months of 2021. And some huge numbers were realized, from 146.6 billion to, rather from 146.6 billion, yes, and above, and amongst others were realized within 9 months, basically.
Yeah, you know, this is a very deceptive headline, I must say. So when you say airlines others raking 146 billion in 9 months, because if you go into the story, when I saw it, I was like,
Covers
wow,
other sectors.
where did they get the data from?
talks
Because
about the
for you
rails
to
and
know
other
how much
sectors
they've
too.
raked in, then you know how much all the airlines have made, from selling, seats. And you must have access to your revenue, and it says, oh, this is based on one report, but they didn't mention the report. This is a new report obtained by our correspondent revealed on Wednesday. What report is that? And it didn't reference. And I read for that. I realized that what they've just done is basically to look at the GDP numbers in the aviation sector, and because there's a growth there, and then you just attribute all that to raking in. So, bit of a funny way of reporting here. So please, I'm not going to encourage anyone to just take that headline seriously. However, in terms of GDP growth rate, I think we mentioned it here. One of the sectors I did mention yesterday was transportation.
Okay.
It's one of the fastest growing sectors at the moment in the country. The airlines, particularly in Nigeria, have benefited a lot from that. That's why you see a lot of investments going in that direction. So whether it's airlines, whether it's railways, there's a lot of investments that have gone in there, and it's been tough for them. If you ask a lot of the operators in this sector, particularly travel agents, they'll complain so much that it hasn't been a very good year for them. But in terms of local travel, I think local travel has sort of been insulated to a large extent from the issues with COVID-19, the issues COVID-19 has had with international travel. We haven't seen a lot of cancelled flights locally, unlike what you read abroad, what you read in the news abroad, where you see flights cancelled for the holiday. People are still traveling. I think that there are also a lot of airlines now to convey people from one destination to the other. And I think we also have more local airports as well, which means that there's a lot more.
It's open up for more revenue.
Exactly, there's a lot more commute and a lot more connection between states across the country. So you would expect that should reflect on their top line. And by the way, airlines have also increased their ticket prices.
Yeah.
I mean, so a roundabout trip that would cost 50K before, 70, 80K now, if not 100, depending on when you're buying the ticket. So yes, they've seen. You would expect that there's been a boost, to their overall growth, and that is as reflected in the GDP numbers, which we mentioned yesterday. And I guess that's what this story is basically speaking. So just the headline, that's a bit just when you say
It's a
raking.
bit iffy for you.
Yeah.
All right,
Yes,
we have
that's
a
what it-
message here from Suleiman. Says the truth is we had the capacity to produce a lot of these drugs in the past, but because we had always had inconsistent policies and keep creating unfriendly business environment, a lot of these companies have packed their things and left. Right now, it's cheaper to import finished drugs than to try manufacturing.
Tai comes in to say government agencies and repetition of work is the hallmark of recent federal governments. After a while, it would progress with establishing legislation, but we move.
All right, let's get into the next story. This is a case called just the basic disagreement with Arewa Conservative Forum, Obasanjo, Pandef. Everyone is saying, you know what, we're backing Obasanjo up. If you Okay, so the basic disagreement is based on the Niger Delta crude oil. Who owns what? Is it to the federal government or the host community? Afenifere says they're seeking constitution review, and they say that Nigeria does not practice federalism. The Yoruba Association Political Organization, Afenifere, called for the review their first beneficiaries. I thought this was kind of already happening, but at the same time, what's this whole fight about?
Follow the money. It's the money at the end of the day. It's the money. So um, it's interesting that this is surfacing again, because I remember in the Obasanjo days, this was always the problem. Who owned what oil or the other. I can't remember that legal term again they created. Is it contingent or whatever? There was so many, it was a huge issue during his time around resource control. Resource control was a big issue, and at some point, that's one of the reasons why you saw establishment of Niger Delta, Commission, and then increasing the amount of revenue that was going to Niger Delta State and all of that. So I guess at the heart of it is, how do you take care of resource producing states, especially states that produce most of the resources that we rely on as a country in general. So the reason why people would complain, it's not because yes, the resources in there is not for Nigeria. Constitutionally, resources are for the entire country, and that's how these things are shared. But the key thing is that it just doesn't make sense, no matter how you spin it. It doesn't make sense that people mine gold in your compound, and yet your compound is a slum. It just doesn't make any sense at all, no matter how you want to construe it. And that's really the heart of this discussion. You look at the Niger Delta communities where oil is actually being mined from, and they look like slums, and so you'd expect that places like that,
We have the lion's
yeah, you
share.
have not really the lion's share, would be very well developed and would reflect the amount of money that is being generated from the resources that they are blessed with. I think it just makes sense. And but then who do you blame for that? A lot of people, because a lot of money also goes to those communities, goes to those states. So what do the states do with that money? So even the states themselves don't even spend the money, most of the money, in the communities that actually produce oil. So the same thing you blame the federal government for, you can also blame the
Blame the
state government
states.
for, you can also blame the local government for. So it's really a Nigerian thing, really. No matter who is president, no matter who is there, they'd always do the same thing, except they change that mindset. What really needs to happen is that those communities where this oil is being produced, you need to give them a fair share of the revenue that you're getting, and either you do that by ensuring that there's proper development, that these people have good access roads, they have water, they have very solid schools, there are places that you want to go and live in. I think that's really the heart of this conversation. Any other thing here, please, is just pure politics. I'm not sure that's what we want to start discussing now.
All right, a message here from Yinka Bolu. Airlines raking that much? Please, let's differentiate between rip-off and actual business. Some folks couldn't fly because of the crazy price, as much as almost 100K to fly to the east because of Christmas. Are we the ones that caused COVID-19? That you want to make a lost revenue off of me? And there was actually that news update about airlines increasing their fare to almost 200%.
Yes. This one here says all this noise about OBJ's statements versus PAE Clark response is only pointing to restructuring. That is what we should be discussing and demanding for right now. If this country isn't restructured, we will be running round the circle, and statements like this will continue coming up. Our take from the OBJ versus PAE Clark should be how this country should be restructured and how resource control must be on point, must be a priority on priority list. By so doing, each regions will be able to manage and control their resources. And this is from Adegbuega Adedeji. We're totally out of time, but let's take one more message. This one here says, Ugo, the word is
Offshore dichotomy.
onshore, offshore.
Onshore, offshore
Dichotomy,
dichotomy. Yeah.
contingent shelf or whatever.
Yes.
I mean, these things are
Thank
just.
you, Nick.
Thank you so much, Nick.
All right, we've had a really good conversation. Thank
Yes.
you, Ugo, for coming in on Pressure Press this morning.
Thank you very much. Wow, we're done already.
Yes,
We're
we
done
are.
already.
You can catch Ugo on social media. He's at Ugo Dre. And of course, we're everywhere. We're on Facebook. Please continue the conversation with us on Facebook. We have the headlines there, so let us know what you think of the headlines on our Facebook page. We also have the headlines on our Instagram stories. We have them on our status.
Everywhere you could
Yes,
possibly think of.
everywhere. So follow us on social media and interact with us. We look forward to hearing from you. Right after this is Lagos Talk, so you can actually call in to share your thoughts about these stories.
Oh,
Thank you so much, Ugo Dre.
how did
That
I
was really
survive
nice.
that?
You survived!
Thank you so much. Take
Ugo.
care.
See you next year.